There are moments in life when everything slows down. Maybe you're sitting alone late at night, maybe it's early morning and the world is still quiet, but your mind starts wandering through the years you've lived. You think about the choices you've made, the paths you took, the people who walked in and out of your story. And in those moments, you can't help but ask yourself the question everyone asks at some point: if you had the chance to live it all over again, would you do things differently? It's almost instinct to say yes. Of course we'd change something. We'd avoid heartbreak, skip over mistakes, and choose the safer road. Most people carry regrets like heavy luggage, always wishing they could set them down and rewrite the past. But then, every once in a while, you hear someone say something that goes against all of that. Something that almost feels impossible in its honesty. They say, "If I could live my life again, I'd choose you every single time." Just think about that. Out of all the struggles, all the pain, all the things that could have gone better, they'd still choose the same person, the same dream, the same story. There's something deeply powerful about that. It's not denial of the pain, it's acceptance. It's not wishing away the mistakes, it's saying those mistakes were worth it because of what they gave in return. And when we look at Johnny Depp, this thought comes alive in a way that feels raw, human, and unforgettable. His life has been anything but simple. It's been unpredictable, messy, brilliant, heartbreaking, and inspiring all at once. And yet, when you look at the thread running through his story, you see something clear. Time and time again, he chooses to stand by the people and passions that matter most to him. Even if it costs him. Even if it breaks him. And that is why his journey speaks to us on such a deep level. Johnny Depp didn't come into this world with fame waiting for him. He wasn't groomed for Hollywood. His first love wasn't even acting. It was music. Picture a young Johnny with a guitar slung over his shoulder, pouring hours into rehearsals, playing in small venues, hoping his band would take off. Music was his heartbeat. Acting wasn't even in the equation. But life has a way of surprising us, doesn't it? A random opportunity came his way, an audition he hadn't planned on, and suddenly the course of his life shifted. He landed a role, and before long, he was in front of the camera, stepping into a spotlight he never expected. Now imagine that for a moment. You've spent your whole life chasing one dream, and out of nowhere, another door opens. Would you take it? Would you step through, or would you cling tightly to what you thought your life was supposed to be? Johnny stepped through. And that choice changed everything. It wasn't always easy. Fame came fast. Attention came faster. Mistakes followed, as they often do when the world suddenly knows your name. But despite everything that followed, the chaos, the controversies, the heartbreak, Johnny never spoke of acting as a mistake. He never said he wished he'd stayed with music. That choice, the one he hadn't even planned for, gave him a career that defined his identity. And if you asked him today whether he'd do it again, it's hard to imagine him saying no. Because without it, he wouldn't have created the characters that became part of our culture, part of us. And then there's love. Johnny's love life has been a headline for decades. From long-term relationships to marriages, from passionate romances to public breakups, it has all been on display. And let's be honest, some of those endings were brutal. Some were so public, so painful, that most people would give anything to erase them from memory. But Johnny's way of looking at love has always been different. Even when things ended, he's spoken with respect about those who once held his heart. That kind of grace is rare. Because most of us, when faced with heartbreak, want to forget. But haven't you ever had someone in your life who mattered so deeply that, even if it ended badly, you'd still choose them again? Maybe because of the joy they gave you in that season of your life. Maybe because of the lessons they taught you. Or maybe simply because, without them, you wouldn't be the same person you are today. That's what Johnny's story reminds us of. That sometimes, even with pain attached, love is worth choosing again. And it's not just his romantic relationships. His bond with his fans tells a similar story. For more than 30 years, millions of people around the world have stood by him. They've cheered for his performances, laughed and cried with his characters, defended him during the hardest times of his life. And what's remarkable is how he's treated them in return. He's called them his family. He's thanked them again and again, not in the shallow way some celebrities do, but in ways that feel genuine. You can see it in the way he spends hours signing autographs, listening to their stories, connecting with them as if they're more than just faces in a crowd. If you asked him whether he'd choose those same fans again, whether he'd want to walk the same road with them by his side, it seems obvious. The answer would be yes, without hesitation. But Johnny's story isn't just about the people in his life. It's also about the choices he's made with his career. Unlike so many actors who pick the safest roles, who follow the money or the trend, Johnny has always chosen differently. He's drawn to characters who are unusual, complex, sometimes even risky. Think about Edward Scissorhands, a gentle outcast with scissors for hands. Or Captain Jack Sparrow, a character so unpredictable that nobody thought he'd become the icon he is today. Or the Mad Hatter, eccentric and colorful in a way only Johnny could bring to life. These roles weren't guaranteed hits. They could have failed spectacularly. But Johnny chose them anyway. Why? Because they gave him a chance to be authentic. To create something real, something bold. And if you asked him whether he'd play it safe if he had the chance to do it all again, the answer is clear. He'd still take those risks. Because for him, being true to himself mattered more than following the crowd. And then there's family, the part of his life that he's always protected fiercely. At the height of his fame, when Hollywood was ready to give him endless opportunities, he often stepped back. He chose time with his children over time on set. He chose being a father over being a celebrity. And in interviews, he's made it clear, no award, no paycheck, no amount of success could ever compare to the joy of fatherhood. That's telling, isn't it? In a world that celebrates fame above all, he chose something quieter, but infinitely more meaningful. And if you asked him whether he'd make the same choice again, whether he'd put family above fame, the answer is already written in the way he's lived. When you put all of this together, you see a picture of a man whose life has been filled with storms. He's faced controversies, criticisms, betrayals, and moments when everything seemed like it could collapse. But through it all, he's shown us that regret doesn't have to define us. Because living without regret doesn't mean never making mistakes. It means knowing which choices you'd make again, even if they came with pain, because of how much they meant to you. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Maybe it's not about avoiding the wrong turns, but about asking yourself which people and passions you'd choose again, no matter what. That's the challenge Johnny's story gives us. Look at your own life. Who are the people you'd choose again, even if it meant reliving the same heartbreak? What dreams would you chase, even if they came with risks? What path would you walk, even knowing the struggles ahead? Those answers tell you what really matters. So think about it for a moment. If life handed you the chance to start over, would you erase the pain, or would you embrace it because of what it gave you? Would you choose safety, or would you risk it all again to stay true to yourself? Would you choose the same love, the same dreams, the same path? Johnny Depp's journey shows us that the answer isn't about perfection. It's about meaning. It's about loyalty. It's about the courage to look at your life and say, yes, I'd do it again. And when he says, if I could live my life again, I'd choose you every single time, he's not just talking about one person. He's talking about everything that made his story worth living, his art, his family, his fans, his love. Choices that, even through heartbreak, gave his life its shape and soul. And maybe that's the lesson we all need to hear. That even with mistakes, even with scars, if you can look back and still say, yes, I'd choose this again, then maybe you've lived well. Because in the end, what matters isn't a perfect life. It's a meaningful one. So let me ask you now. If you could live your life again, who would you choose? What dream would you chase? What path would you walk, even knowing the risks? Think about it. Share your story. Because at the end of the day, the greatest thing any of us can say is this, that no matter how messy, no matter how painful, we'd still choose the people and the passions that made our lives worth living. Every single time.